Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Good evening, I'm Peggy Scott Laborde and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, Susan Larson, host of The Reading Life and Outside the Book. She's a busy bee on WWNO radio. Great to see you. Hello,
Thanks,
dear.
Peg.
Voodoo priestess, but social activist and so much more. Sallie Ann Glassman, good to see you, dear. Hello.
Thanks.
She's going to tell us about the Day of the Dead celebration next week at the New Orleans Healing Center. Broussard's executive chef, Jimmy Setchim, and who's been around for a long time. He's practically a local, right?
Just about.
Absolutely. And he's going to tell us about the special Season of Good Taste dinner. Looking forward to that. Hello. And Alan Smason of Crescent City Jewish News and TheaterCriticism.com. Poppy will be returning on November the 8th. But first up, Chef Jimmy. Chef Jimmy, I know you've worked at the Palace Cafe, but you've been at Broussard's for a while. And what's up with Broussard's these days? Such a beautiful restaurant.
Yes, it's beautiful. One of the largest courtyards in the city, if not the French Quarter. But we're really excited to be celebrating 100 years in 2020. So we're kind of ramping up to that.
And the Preußes, who were very much a part of the more recent past, are so wonderful and add so much in their history as well.
Absolutely. They kept the place going and kept that history alive. And that's really what we want to do
Ownership here.
is really keep that history, the 100 years of history and celebration alive and just progress it forward a little bit.
Well, there's a special menu and special meal that's going to be benefiting WYES, so we thank you in advance on that.
We're excited to do it.
We're thrilled. But tell us about what we can expect on the meal.
So dinner is 6 o'clock on Tuesday the 5th. We're going to start off with some past hors d'oeuvres, fried oysters. It's going to be curried creme fraiche and a little bit of Cajun caviar, local caviar on it. We're going to be doing a herb-crusted lamb carpaccio with some rosemary aioli. A really nice fall roasted pumpkin risotto, some mushrooms, gorgonzola cheese, a little bit of apple in there. The main course is going to be a duck breast, pan-seared, finish it in the oven. Some fall vegetables. We've got butternut squash, pumpkin, onions. That should be really, really nice, and just a little reduction over the top. And dessert will be a warm Honeycrisp apple tart. So almost like the best apple pie you've ever had.
Sounds good. Plus, there's a beautiful bar, and as you said, there's the courtyard. It's a fairly large restaurant.
Yeah.
You've got the wonderful, the front of it, but this beautiful courtyard in the back, and there's even a side part of the restaurant facing the courtyard, and then that bar.
Yeah, the Empire Bar is kind of a tribute to Napoleon, and it's big, it's grand, it's got a great liquor selection, obviously, and some really talented bartenders doing cocktails. We do a lot of Ramos Gin Fizzes there. Right. We do, some Hurricanes and some Pimm's Cups and some of those more traditional stuff. They also have some really cool creations.
When you mentioned duck, that is certainly to me an epitome of a fall dish. So, do you have the joy and the work of figuring out, how to keep your menu fresh?
Absolutely. We change the menu 5 or 6 times a year and try to keep it as seasonal and as fresh as possible. But duck is one of those fall dishes that it just kind of speaks to you of that warm, kind of homey, but rich and elegant feel at the same time.
Well, great. We look forward to having you back for the anniversary. That's not
Yeah.
too far.
We'll
but
be excited.
Once again, WYES.org for more information about that, and you'll be helping WYES. But it's great to have you with us, too.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And we move over to Miss Sallie Ann. And I know that you very much are devoted to the ancestors, everyone's ancestors. We have to remember that, especially for next, of course, the November 1st, next Friday, the Day of the Dead.
Yeah, so there are actually 3 days of the dead in Mexico, but we land on November 1st. And the idea, you think about the Day of the Dead, people think morbid things and spooky things. It's not like that at all. It's really all about welcoming back your beloved dead, and the veils that separate the world are most thin. So all the people that came before you and made you who you are today and set you into the world come back, and we find out about who they were, and we get to show them that we respect them and love them.
Now tell us what that evening will comprise.
So we've got a whole lot going on at the Healing Center. There are numerous altars that are interfaith altars by different artists and different traditions honoring the dead and the ancestors and those who've come before. And we have a wonderful market with crafts that are being sold that starts at 5:30, and food by Che restaurant at the Healing Center, and other vendors selling Haitian Creole food, the Rendezvous Creole restaurant. And then we have a full-on voodoo ceremony because the spirits of the dead are most active at this time of the year, the Gede spirits. And it's also referred to as Fête Gede, the Festival of Gede.
So in terms of timing, what time is the ceremony?
The ceremony is from 7 to 10 and is followed by a fabulous potluck supper. Everybody brings food. And then we go to there's a corner lot where an artist built a driftwood ship that's to carry the souls of Katrina dead. And we go there and we feed the dead and we say prayers for the dead from different traditions and light candles, and it's just a beautiful night.
To be remembered, so important.
Yeah.
Now, who was Fête Gede or Fête Gede?
Fête Gede.
Fête Gede.
So that's the Festival of Gede, and his month is the month of November, and he is the leader of the family of the dead, and he's quite an interesting fellow. His colors are purple and black, and he wears a top hat, and he wears sunglasses with one lens because he sees through worlds or sees in both worlds. And he could be embarrassing. He can act like a drunkard, but he stands at the crossroads between life and death. So he's actually a very serious fellow. And when there's a life and death issue, that's who you go to, and he can be compassionate and kind. He, on the other hand, loves to smoke cigars and drink rum and act out, and so he's very festive. It's really fun to hang out with him and celebrate him.
Well, we should point out the other 364 days of the year, unless it was a leap year or something. The Healing Center is quite the happening little place. I mean, you have, of course, your own shop there, and you sell a lot of religious articles and so much more, but there's a food co-op, there's the restaurant, there's Cafe Istanbul. There's
about 25, 28 different businesses and organizations. There's Wild Lotus Yoga Studio, there's restaurants, there's the Affordable Healing Arts that has all manner of complementary and alternative healing. There's classes, there's just a wealth of activities, and we have Ricky Pustanio's Mardi Gras float pieces in the lobby all the time, so people come in and get to see Mardi Gras up close and in person, and there's just a lot happening. It's a beautiful community and diverse
if you
community.
have not gone there before, it is right across from St. Roch Market, which is another happening place. But to see the growth, and I know you and your husband Prez were so involved with the development of St. Claude, and it is just amazing, even 5 to 10 years ago, what the transformation has been.
Well, we picked one of the renovation zones, revival zones that the czar of rebuilding after Katrina had set up, and the idea was that if you take a very iconic neighborhood or corner in that neighborhood, that the renovation would spread. And
was it a furniture store? I'm trying to remember what it was.
Universal Furniture.
Universal Furniture. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, congratulations. For more information, the website.
It's www.neworleanshealingcenter.org, and we're also on social media, so people can find us easily.
Thank you again for all your efforts.
Yeah.
And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, Joy Perk gave us the names of the cemeteries that voodoo queen Marie Laveau was entombed in. And what other cemetery was Josie Arlington first laid to rest? The answers now. St. Louis #1, that's the famous Marie Laveau, of course, the tomb, but some other folks think she's in St. Louis #2, so we would have accepted 2 as well, since there is some dispute on that. But also Metairie Cemetery for Josie Arlington. Her remains have since been moved, but there. That wonderful historic cemetery as well. So tonight our question, in honor of the Pelicans, basketball season starting this week. Before the team was renamed the Pelicans, what was its original name? And where did the team play its home games for 2 seasons after Hurricane Katrina? Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prizes: a year's subscription to Louisiana Life magazine and a pair of free admission passes to either the Audubon Zoo, Aquarium of the Americas, or the Butterfly Garden and Insectarium. You can go to wyes.org/steppinout for our online calendar, including Jacques Brel and Edith Piaf's best-known songs in a show called Songs of Passion. That's on Sunday at 7 o'clock at the Columns Hotel on St. Charles Avenue. The cabaret performance will feature Bremner Duthie and Heidi and Philip Melanson. Tickets are just $20, and you can email melonsongs, all one word, at gmail.com to reserve your seats. You can also link to WYES's YouTube channel to see our program. And now, yay, Susan. Looking forward to having you. Okay.
It's fall festival time, and books are no exception in the festival world. So if you're a book lover, the only place to be Saturday, November 2nd is in Baton Rouge. At the state capitol, the whole complex will be filled with authors, book lovers. There'll be activities in the state capitol itself, and it is always so much fun to sit in your legislator's seat and play with the buttons. And
You actually get to go there.
You get to sit there,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of fun all by itself. But it's a wonderful event at the State Library, the State Museum. That great green space is filled with tents for young readers' activities. There's a teen hangout in the State Library. There are tents for exhibitors and a book tent that is ginormous, and food tents and music stages, of course.
And free.
This is, and free. Well, the food's not free,
No,
but nevertheless.
The events are.
But we're accustomed to that. And more than 230 writers will be there. It's astonishing how many writers we have who live here, work here, want to come here.
A precious little poster they'd love to.
Oh, and the art is by Rob Guillory, who was so thrilled to do it. And that's really the way it looks, when you're out on the walk there.
Very family.
So I have picked my 10 favorites to go through really quickly. And the festival always begins with this very sweet moment where the Louisiana Writer Award is presented at 9 o'clock in the State Library in the House Chamber by State Librarian Rebecca Hamilton. And this year's recipient is Richard Campanella.
So well deserved.
So well deserved. Bienville's Dilemma, so many great books, New Orleans Urban Fabrics Before the Storm, just New Orleans Then and Now from the very beginning, and the Bourbon Street history. So he'll be receiving that book at 9 o'clock, and then he'll be interviewed at 10 afterwards. And it's always nice to hear a Louisiana writer talk about what living here means to them. It's just a very special moment. And then our amazing new poet laureate, John Warner Smith, will be giving a reading at 1:15 that afternoon in the Capitol Park Events Center. And he's just newly minted, newly announced, but he's published 4 books, and he'll be reading from all of them. And my favorite is Muhammad's Mountain, which is a wonderful selection of poems he wrote while he was grieving for his childhood idol, Muhammad Ali. So everybody will love that. And Jamie Attenberg will be there with her new book, All This Could Be Yours. She is pole vaulting onto the bestseller lists, even as we speak. This is her first novel set in New Orleans about the death of an evil patriarch and the effect of that on his family. And then nonfiction writer Daniel Brooke will be there. He's written one of the important books about Reconstruction this year. We've had a boom in books about Reconstruction. His book is The Accident of Color, A Story of Race and Reconstruction. Sarah Broom will be there. She's a National Book Award finalist for The Yellow House, a memoir set in New Orleans East about the whole idea of home and what happens when home changes or vanishes. And one of my very favorites is Casey Sepp, who wrote Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee, which talks about, Harper Lee's last days and the trial she covered in an attempt to make a book out of it. And then Nathaniel Rich will be there to talk about Losing Earth,
One
a
of our
recent
regulars.
history. I adore him.
Yes.
And his book is such an urgent plea for climate change and such a woeful story about how close we came to making a real difference. And then Maurice Carlos Ruffin will be there. He has had a great year with We Cast a Shadow kicking off last January, and he has a new collection of short stories coming out this January. I like the January Maurice Carlos Ruffin celebration. I think that's a good thing. And then Margaret Wilkerson Sexton, who's a New Orleans native, was a National Book Award winner for her first book, A Kind of Freedom. And her new book, The Revisioners, is out this week, set in New Orleans and places nearby, and it is even better. Don't miss that book. And then last, but by no means least, Albert Woodfox, the last of the Angola Three to be released. Solitary, My Story of Transformation and Hope, is also a National Book Award finalist. We are so lucky to have all these good writers working in New Orleans and Louisiana right now. So those are some of my top 10 picks, but there are 220 plus more.
Yes,
So you'll find something you like for your kids or your friends. And if you want to get there early, the festival offers workshops with the writers who are attending. So Friday, you can look at the schedule at louisianabookfestival.org, and there are classes from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4 with Steph Post, Steve Luxembourg, Michelle Philgate, and Michael Knight, who are all terrific writers. Okay. And then louisianabookfestival.org for the complete schedule. And just a little shout out to Jim Davis and his team for all their hard work in putting this together. Absolutely. Really, really good work this year.
Thank you, Susan. And now it is time for our Artist Spotlight. This week we are highlighting the Halloween-themed tours of the Historic New Orleans Collection's Louisiana History Galleries, Danse Macabre, The Nightmare of History. And this is the insect-headed tombstone photographed by Clarence John Laughlin. And we have Death Riding on a Redfish by Ben Smith. Woo! These thematic tours, which will lead visitors through darker aspects of New Orleans lore, will run Tuesday through Sunday at 11 a.m. until October the 31st at 533 Royal Street. Admission is just $5. Go to hnoc.org for more information. Now, Alan.
Well, you know, the demolition at the Hard Rock Hotel went on after several delays on Sunday, and we found out that when the cranes came down, they didn't exactly go where everybody wanted them to go. One literally speared North Rampart Street. I believe the report was about 15 feet down, but nevertheless, several additional windows were blown out at the time at the Sanger, but the Sanger largely remained unscathed by the destruction that was going on, and they do still have a roof to repair. They do have several windows, as I mentioned, but other than that, they are going to be hopefully open for business soon. The Sanger seats about 2,600 people. The Mahalia Jackson Theater for the Performing Arts has about 2,243 seats. That's about 357 seats left. Now, the reason I mention that is tickets are being exchanged now for the show that have been scheduled for the Sanger and being relocated back to the Mahalia Jackson. Let's just talk about first the Queen show that was going to be going on this coming Tuesday. We Will Rock You, the Queen musical. If you bought tickets through Ticketmaster, they're exchanging those tickets for you through the computers. If you bought them in person at the Sanger, you need to go and exchange them at the box office. By the way, they are working out of the Mahalia Jackson now, all the Sanger staff. That's where they are, and it's a day-by-day event. They don't know when they're going to be able to go back in the original building. Now, meanwhile, the Mahalia Jackson Theater is the place for the venue that opens tonight for The Color Purple. It is the same national tour that came through here last year, and this is all part of Troika Productions, headed up by Brian Schrader of New Orleans. He's the general manager, and there are going to be some beautiful moments in this musical. If you haven't seen it already, I urge you to go check it out. There's some beautiful ballads, and I guess with Suge Avery, I guess you might call some belly rubbing music as well in that as well. The Color Purple, just for this weekend, tonight through Sunday. Now, there's no word yet on the nearly sold-out show, though, that I was mentioning earlier, the national tour of Dear Evan Hansen. There are just a few seats left. Now, the reason I mentioned the large number of seats, 357 difference between the Sanger and Mahalia Jackson, if the event has to shift over to the Sanger, it's possible, but there may be some seats that may not shift over.
Over
We're
to
not sure.
Mahalia?
Yes, so they have not said that it's going to shift yet. We don't know it's a day-by-day affair, but again, very few seats remain. It's almost sold out right now for Dear Evan Hansen, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. It really depends on how the demolition work goes and also the repairs of the Sanger. But again, I recommend Dear Evan Hansen. If you didn't get a ticket yet, go get one soon. Meanwhile, In 2010, Theater 13, the team that now serves as the artistic directors at Rivertown Theaters for the Performing Arts, they had a production of a piece called November, and it basically deals with Bob Eads Jr. and Leon Canavespri. They're in the two lead roles. Well, guess what? They're going to be back, and I'm going to be able to review this on November the 8th, but they're going to be opening this weekend for a total of 10 shows, and reprising their roles will be Leon Canavespri and Bob Eads Jr. So, again, if you enjoyed it back, yeah, it's all about a guy in the White House who's trying to seek re-election and not really doing a good job at it, so we'll leave it at that. Coming up also, at UNO, I wanted to tell you about a regional premiere of a new musical. Now, when we talk about UNO, we usually talk about plays. Okay, this is called Dark Nights, the musical, and it's by Kalo Gao. Kalo is new on the scene, and this is the first musical being presented at UNO by UNO, not part of like the NOLA project. They did Urinetown, if you remember, but this is going to be all student participation, the first musical for the university in a long time, featuring all students. So I really want everybody to put their efforts behind that and let them know how much we appreciate musicals as well, because they do a lot of them at Loyola and at Tulane, but not necessarily at UNO. And finally, it was just announced that managing director of the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, James Boyd, will be stepping down at the end of the year. Now, this guy, really, my hat's off to him. He's done a magnificent job working with Maestro Carlo Prieto with the move to the Orpheum, and, of course, the Carnegie Hall concert they did last year. Among his highlights, he is to be congratulated on a job well done. He's going to be here through December, but, again, I think he's going to be moving back home. So,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you so much, Alan. Lots of stuff. And now it's time for our picks. Susan.
Octavia Books presents Ta-Nehisi Coates discussing his first novel, The Water Dancer, with Jesmyn Ward. That's Wednesday, October 30th at 7 at Temple Sinai, 6227 St. Charles Avenue. Get your tickets now.
Thank you, Sallie Ann.
So every Friday, my husband and I go out for a wonderful dinner, and so I recommend everybody come out to M Chai Restaurant in the Healing Center, and when you're done eating the fabulous food, you go up to Mojo's Bounce Studio and do some bounce fitness. She's great and inspiring.
Okay, thank you, Chef.
If you can't make it to the WYES dinner, you can come by the restaurant any night of the week. Our duck right now is phenomenal. I was going to talk about brunch, but after we talked about duck, it really warmed me up right now. It's got a Nicello cherry demi-glace on it and some herbed popcorn rice. So.
All right, thank you.
One more shout out to the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra coming up on Saturday, and a rain date will be on Sunday. If it does rain, I don't know that it will. But they have the Sunset Symphony on the lake. It's free to the public at Mandeville, the lakefront. The stage is between Coffee and Carroll, and you watch the sunset and you listen to the music of the LPO. What could be more perfect?
Sounds good. And before we go to my picks, let's remember Mother Francis Xavier Cabrini, America's first saint, and who we like to call actually the original New Orleans saint.
To commemorate the founding of New Orleans in 1718, WYES presents this tricentennial moment in celebration of our city's past and present.
She wanted to leave Italy and go east to the Orient, but Pope Leo XIII urged her to go west to America, where so many of her countrymen were poverty-stricken and needed assistance. Mother Francis Xavier Cabrini founded the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart, arriving in New York City in 1889. 3 years later, she and her nuns came to New Orleans to tend the needs of local Italian, mostly Sicilian immigrants. The sisters occupied a large building on St. Philip Street in the French Quarter and opened a school and later a day nursery. But the priority was to start an orphanage, since many children had lost their parents due to yellow fever outbreaks. Outgrowing their French Quarter facility, Mother Cabrini secured a donation of $75,000 from Captain and Mrs. Salvatore Pizzotti. With those funds, in 1905, Cabrini was able to build an orphanage on Esplanade Avenue. On view in the building is her bedroom, as well as many personal items, along with her checkbook. She died in 1917. But her missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart continued their work in New Orleans. By 1959, the orphanage was converted into a Catholic girls' high school. 6 years later, a modern structure was built on Bayou St. John, behind the original building. Mother Cabrini became a naturalized citizen and is America's first saint. but because of her local legacy, she is considered the original New Orleans saint. And Cabrini High School and the American Italian Cultural Center will be presenting the Promenade on Esplanade Gala event. That's Saturday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. The event takes place actually on the Cabrini High School grounds at 3400 Esplanade Avenue. The school is raising funds to renovate their auditorium and gym and create a new arts center. Go to CabriniHigh.com for more information. And Sister Renee, I am told, gives tours of those rooms where Mother Cabrini actually was, which is pretty incredible, and that's so rare anywhere, in the world to actually see where an actual saint lived. I think that's amazing. To see her checkbook, you saw the photos of her, and the shoes, and her umbrella. Wonderful. Anyway, I'm a proud Cabrini alum. Maybe you could figure that out. All right. And now time for my picks. The 24th annual Halloween Costume Boutique will take place from noon to 5 p.m. at the New Orleans Healing Center on St. Claude Avenue. Lots of great costumes. And check out an art and jewelry open house featuring the work of the talented Catherine Clemitis. That's this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. at 4517 Rebecca Boulevard in Metairie. Go to her website, kakartnola.com, to see the artist's work. I'm a big fan. She does jewelry, but she also does portraits, pet portraits, and animal portraits too. And she's got pillows, but I really love her jewelry too. Also this Sunday is the Buddy Bolden and the Birth of Jazz in New Orleans concert and discussion. The program begins at 3 p.m. will be hosted by clarinetist, music historian, he's so passionate, Dr. Michael White. Also appearing will be the original Liberty Jazz Band and the Joanne Brown Band and the original New Orleans Gospel Singers. The event will be held at the Xavier University Student Center's McCaffrey Ballroom. It's a great space. It's free too. Go to xula.edu for more information. And now, though, and happy Halloween, everybody, pending. Now we leave you with a little taste of Halloween from the uptown Riverside corner of St. Charles Avenue and State Street. Thanks to editor Larry Russery, and thank you all very much for watching. Woo! Good night. Woo!
Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.